Gather around, kids, for today we learn to appreciate the pointlessness of team building with Capes, a turn-based strategy game in which I attempt to drill the need for self-restraint into a crew of angsty superpowered teenagers. Set in the familiar comic book metropolitan streets of King City, the elected leaders have apparently graduated from doing the dirty work of their campaign donors and have simply handed the keys directly to the friendly neighborhood megacorporation. Having finally won the game of capitalism, the newly in charge corporate overlords figured the best way to show off the size of their balls is to antagonize the resident superhero community. And so, it falls to the local cape-wearing enthusiasts to band together, stick it to the man, and possibly stand up for the most over-entitled demographic group ever to be marginalized on the history of the planet. Now, you may be thinking that this all sounds rather lazy and generic, and you'll be right, cause it is, as the writers couldn't even be bothered to come up with a proper name for the titanic mega company responsible for the concentration camps, let alone a sensible plot. That being said, as somebody who saved the world in XCOM with a team of discount celebrities with the dress code of a circus clown, one would be right to think that a superhero tactics game would have me bathing in sedatives to calm my otherwise glass-cutting nipples. Yet despite holding a free pass to the land of money trees and chocolate strippers, the game somehow managed to create more problems than a blind man left unsupervised in a warehouse. So after doing a bit of digging, as I had no idea who these hacks were, it became apparent that the people at Spitfire Interactive likely has a bone or two to pick with their former employers. Having to jump ship several times over the past 2 decades, the clear signs of a pissed off story writer leaving behind clues for his future victims is practically written all over the bloody walls. Couldn't you people have just vented out your problems over social media or nicked some office supplies like the rest of us? And look, while I am sympathetic towards those who get spat out in an industry notorious for terrible management and insane practices, the sad truth is that you folks are just terrible at your jobs. Where to even start? Every level begins by catapulting you into a room full of enemies, giving you literally no time to make careful plans or set up a clever ambush, or the enemy designs like imagination, comprising mostly of the same dude wielding a crowbar or a firearm, and who all can be outwitted by standing over a ladder. The character models are ugly enough to drive a small child to tears and made only more terrible by having cringy voice acting sounding worse than a kindergarten rehearsal being performed in a room partially underwater. But even if they managed to get the ghost of Robbie Williams to redo every voice line like a Shakespearean soliloquy, it's been a while since I've seen such god-awful writing. It's like the writer could only come up with dialogue for angsty teenagers, and so the entire cast had to be made up of nothing but frustrating brats with OCD, completely incapable of self-reflection, and who keep doing the same stupid things without facing any pushback. I had to physically walk out of the room when some pink-haired twat decided to live stream herself during what was supposed to be an undercover mission. Like, what the fuck was this dingus thinking, and why wasn't everybody else's first reaction not to slap her across her fat tits? And this kind of idiotic behavior just continues to escalate until you're left with no sympathy for any of the characters. Like, listen, Spitfire Interactive, I hate to be harsh on an indie team when it comes to things like poor art design or bad audio recordings, cause I get it, you're making a game out of shoestrings and water biscuits. It ain't easy, but that's hardly an excuse for the drooling cardboard cutout you got working the writer's desk. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna take a break from my review and offer you my 2 cents. Right, so welcome to Basic Common Sense 101. Say you need to set up an interesting character arc for a guy with psychic powers. Instead of writing him as a one-dimensional character who throws rocks at people, take a moment to consider how his abilities might affect him and his relationship with others. Like, for fuck's sakes, this is somebody who grew up with the power to read people's minds. Do you not understand that personal privacy is really important for a lot of people? So imagine how hard it is to get along with somebody who can freely invade your mind at leisure. And so obviously his abilities are gonna make a lot of people uncomfortable, especially to those with a troubled past. Now this is perfect because it's gonna lead to internal conflict within the group, which is exactly what you need to drive personal change. Like, the most basic way to set up character growth is to have 2 people fight over a problem, confront their differences, and eventually mature as individuals. Even a freaking 90s show like Sailor Moon understood this, so I just don't understand how something so obvious was overlooked. But let's say I misread something and you were actually going for a Saturday morning cartoon kind of tone. If that's the case, then ditch all the low-hanging fruit politics and just go all in on a comedy. Like, give your characters completely silly powers and have them mess up at every turn. Basically, you want your players to be rooting against them and practically laughing when they screw up. Something akin to South Park or Mystery Men. And look, if you truly are incapable of exploring compelling themes or writing relatable characters, then this would be your best bet going forward. Just star up the stupid and include as much self-depreciating humor as possible. Alrighty, that's this month's charity work done. Now back to the review. As I was saying earlier, everything about the creative and art direction came across as amateurish and lazy. But the real cyanide icing on top of this Ebola flavored cake was the perverse message being pushed throughout the game's final act. I'm not entirely sure if the writers themselves realized just how comically awful it really is. In the final cutscene, which I'm just gonna spoil cause fuck it, after murdering the people in power during what's theoretically supposed to come across as a moment of triumph, our heroes reconvene at the gravesite of a man who none of them gave a shit about about, and defiantly claim that the city now by de facto belongs to them. And to what end exactly? What, is everyone now just supposed to live under societal anarchy in a might makes right world? That sounds even more messed up than it was before. It's like sure, the Roman Empire had its problems, but get rid of them and you're left with the bloody Dark Ages for half a millennium. Frankly, the most heroic thing you could do would be to stop playing this toss of a game before these psychotic idiots really fuck things up.
You're free! Free to live your life as nature intended!